Good morning, Twitter and YouTube family. Welcome to another episode of Boom's Pop-Up Podcast. I'm your host, MrBooMStickXL, and on today's live event, we're going to be talking everything Cyberpunk 2077. In the last 3 days, I've done real journalistic detective work to find out about everything that you may or may not know about the game. But to do that, I need an incredible guest. And of course, I'm going to go right to one of my favorite people from the Dosage podcast. That is Noof Nukem. Dude, thanks so much. This is now your third time on the show. Welcome back.
Hey, Boom, it's good to be here. And at this early in the morning, the only thing that's usually popping around me is my cyber junk. So let's get ready to roll. This is going to be a fun time, man. I'm ready to dig into what is quite possibly one of the most anticipated games of 2019. Let's hope that it actually comes out next year anyway. But yeah, it's going to be a good time. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate being here.
No, listen, it's always a pleasure to have someone on who really, truly loves gaming from every angle. You're not just an Xbox guy. You play everything. You have a PlayStation VR. You have a PlayStation 4. I don't know. Do you have a Switch?
I had one and just got rid of it.
Well, listen, you know what? It's not for everyone, but you know what? You do like supporting all of the gaming consoles. And you know what? I think that makes us better gamers for it. Let's dive right deep into what we're here to talk about. And that, of course, is Cyberpunk 2077 by CD Projekt RED. Now, what a lot of people don't know is when you say CD Projekt RED, you think Witcher 3, of course. And obviously, the company has been around for quite some time. As a matter of fact, the company was founded in 1994, and they worked with Interplay on many of the Baldur's Gates games. Obviously, the first Witcher game was a PC-only title, and then we had The Witcher 2, which was an Xbox 360 exclusive, if I'm not mistaken. And then, of course, the granddaddy of them all, The Witcher 3, which has basically been considered the RPG of the millennia. Would you agree with that, Noof?
No, I'm going to disagree. I mean, actually, maybe if I finished the game, I'd have a better perspective on the whole thing. I mean, I like the Witcher series. I wasn't a huge fan of number 2. I played it briefly before going into number 3. Number 3, I still haven't finished. I know, a big fraud. But I mean, why haven't I finished it? Because, well, it's a big game. I was one of those guys who picked the game up late. I didn't get it like a day one kind of thing. So I bought this game. I played it. I do enjoy it. I think The Witcher 3 is unbelievably so much more improved over number 2, but it's just a massive game. It's easy to get lost in, and you know, if you take time away from it and you come back, you kind of like, you feel like you're starting all over again. So I think it's an amazing game. You know, RPG of the generation, that's, you know, some people will say yes, but I mean, there's been so many amazing games as well out there. I'd be more likely to put that vote on one of the Mass Effect games, but that's just me, right? Everybody has their preference. I know CD Projekt RED puts a lot of love into their games, and they put a ton of love into The Witcher 3, and it showed. And it's definitely a fantastic game, something that people should at least try, even if they never do finish it. That sort of thing. And yeah, it's just a great game, and I can't wait to see what they do now, taking the story in a completely different direction with Cyberpunk.
Yes. So listen, first and foremost, I don't think anyone that's in the chat or is going to be watching this is going to be like, well, what is Cyberpunk? But listen, if you don't know what it is a futuristic dystopia action RPG that was originally shown off in a reel, and I'm talking about teaser trailer back in 2014. Now, we have not heard much of anything from this game. There's been little tidbits from the developer, but the one thing I will say that's fantastic about CD Projekt RED is that they really keep their gloves close to the chest. And I really do appreciate that, because as much as you want to know about a game, I think we all want to be surprised about a game. And obviously, E3 2018 happened, and there were rumors that we were going to, it was going to somehow show up on the Microsoft stage. And I got to tell you, I've been gaming a very long time. I think everybody that follows me knows that. The way that the Microsoft briefing ended with basically Phil Spencer being cut off by what looked like the set being hacked was literally one of the best. Or we have one more things for you I think I've ever seen. Noof, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, it's a little off-putting, I suppose, just because, you know, after they unveil Gears 5 and then there's that weird pause and then this other game comes up. But boy, was it ever huge to see CD Projekt Red's next game, Cyberpunk, displayed up on the Xbox stage. You know, that's something that you traditionally would think that would have been on the PlayStation stage, but they showed it off at the Xbox stage. It was an incredible, you know, relatively short trailer, but the trailer showed a lot in it. You know, we're going to get into that in detail, but I was quite surprised and shocked. It definitely renewed my optimism and my, you know, excitement for this game, because we really hadn't heard much from it, like you said, from its initial concept and show off a few years back. And now we certainly know a hell of a lot more today than we did then, and there's a lot more to come, apparently.
Oh, yes. I mean, listen, like I said, I really look like what I want people to understand about the Booms Pop-Up podcast is that there are a lot of channels, a lot of really, really fantastic YouTubers that go out of their way to try and make something new and different, which is what I'm trying to do here. Like I have the Breakfast with Boom on Friday, and that's your standard fare. We have a bunch of topics, a lot of new stuff, you know, a lot of cool guests, and we dive deep into it. What I want to bring different each and every week with the Pop-Up podcast is I want us to dive deep into one topic so that we can be here for an hour and 10 minutes and really go to town on what we know about a particular topic. Now, that may be a game review, that may be a game preview like we're doing today, or that may be the hottest thing since sliced bread that's going on in gaming, but I really want it to be different. That's why this format is the way it is. So listen, without any further ado, let's dive into Cyberpunk 2077 and what we know. Now, first and foremost, it was revealed, and a lot of people didn't know this was going to happen, that it is a first-person shooter, okay? And we talked about this a little off the air, but I kind of want to dive really deep into this subject. I have seen basically Twitter going complete apeshit the last few weeks since, you know, post E3 2018 about how several gamers are now trying to boycott this game because there's no third-person option. I got to be honest with you. This is CD Projekt Red, and I think that not only are they one of the most beloved companies in gaming today, they really know how to put a product together. Noof, do you find this boycott situation to be ridiculous or actually have some levity behind it?
Yeah, well, hey, man, it's that small group of fans, once again, that need to take that freaking cork out of their bungholes. You know what I mean? Look, CD Projekt Red are entitled to make whichever game they want. And, you know, forevermore, every game that they're going to make from here on out, it's always going to be somehow tied in and compared to The Witcher. And I think there is no comparison because it's a completely different universe with completely different set of, you know, AI algorithms and the storyline. It's just nothing alike. It's maybe the same company, but it's so different. I mean, just, you know, just in the same way, I'm sure that, you know, you look at BioWare and Mass Effect, and now all of a sudden Anthem looks to be comparably different. Only difference is it's set there; those are both set in sci-fi settings, whereas, you know, The Witcher was set in sort of a medieval, ancient time setting. I don't know, like the 1800s or whatever the hell it is. But then you got this one, which is set way in the future. So those people are just getting overexcited about nothing. I'm really excited about the first-person side of things. I think it's going to be unique for them, and I think it lends really well to the type of game that they're going for, because I think they want people to feel a little like when you're in a first-person mode. I think we can all agree that you feel like you're somehow a little bit more in the game,
yes,
as opposed to watching the game. And you saw that if you look with Skyrim. Yeah, you have both options in Skyrim. I get that, but how many people? I think the majority of people I ever saw play Skyrim always played it from first person because you just felt like you were closer to the action and that you were part of it instead of watching the narrative play out. And I think that's what they're going for. Maybe it sucks to some fans, I get it, but just remember, This is not The Witcher, and everything that they do here on out shouldn't be the friggin' Witcher. Just wait for another Witcher game.
Yes. You know what? The thing is this, okay? You have to look at what they're trying to do. And I agree 1000% with you. We don't want this to be a Witcher in a futuristic setting, right? We want this to be its own entity, all right? And what my biggest problem is that how many first-person monster titles are there released every year that we all play and we love? You have Borderlands first person, you have Halo first person, you have Battlefield, Call of Duty. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on, and no one has a problem with playing in first person. And that's the funny thing. No one, as far as I discovered, no one from CD Projekt Red ever said this game was going to be in third person or been given the option, very similar to Fallout. Fallout, you can be in first person, but they give you a third person option. And the truth is, the third person option really doesn't control that well and looks a little wonky. So what do you want? Do you want a half-baked Cyberpunk 2077, or do you want them to go full in first person and you'll play it like a Doom or any other first person games you've played and enjoy it? See, I'd rather the latter half of that. That's just my choice. But you know what? Here's another thing that people may or may not know. And again, I really went out of my way to spend 3 days digging up anything I could find. And you know what? There's not much, but we're going to break down what I was able to find. It's a single-player game from start to finish, but CD Projekt Red has talked about adding a multiplayer aspect after launch. And of course, because it's CD Projekt Red, it's going to be a free update. Now, I bring up free update because I immediately want to jump into they really, really went out of their way to make sure that there is no loot boxes in this game. And I think that is a big deal because obviously they want this game to last, but it's, when you say game as a service, everyone gets nervous, right? They think, oh boy, here we go. I buy the game, and I'm going to have to spend another $60 after I buy the game. Well, answering a fan on Twitter, I want to read a direct quote from CD Projekt Red on Twitter. It says, "Worry not. When thinking Cyberpunk 2077, think nothing less than The Witcher 3, a huge single-player, open-world, story-driven RPG. No hidden catch. You get what you pay for. No bullshit, just honest gaming like the Wild Hunt. We leave the greed to others." Now, that statement should ring volumes with anyone that's a gamer or that's been gaming in the last couple of years, because obviously the world was taken over by the loot box phenomenon, and some companies did it really crummy. Does that give you confidence, even more confidence in CD Projekt Red, Noof?
Well, absolutely. I think this is why they have such a loyal and vocal fan base, because, as I've said, they put plenty of love, attention to detail, and, their games are very fan-focused. They listen to the community. They make improvements based on what the community says. And the one shocking thing about CD Projekt Red, unlike many other developers, these guys, in a way, sort of came out of left field. Kind of took the world by storm, especially with The Witcher 3 came out. Like I said, it was such a massive game on a critical scale and every other scale. But the thing is, unlike other people, and this is the interesting part, is as far as I know, CD Projekt Red, I do believe, at least for The Witcher 3, published that game themselves. I don't recall it being published by anyone in particular. I think the former games,
I believe you're correct. Yes.
I think the old games may have been Warner Brothers Interactive. If I'm not 100% sure, that somebody in the chat might have details, but that's interesting. If they publish that game themselves, and they're obviously going to publish this one themselves, it says a lot about who they are and the fact they haven't sold out, they haven't been bought out. They march with a beat of their own drum. They're going to take as long as they need to make sure this game is up to snuff. And again, they have no shithead fucking publisher, aka Activision, down their throat, tell them they need to do this and this and this, and you need to do it by this time, and this is how it's going to be done. And I think that's a huge advantage for them, because they can make the game that they want to make, and they can cater to the fans the way that they feel their fans need to be catered to, and they don't have to sell out. That game is, look, it's The Witcher 3 sold like boatloads. It was a multi-plat, and the Cyberpunk 2077 is obviously, I think, already, just based on the hype alone, is probably setting itself up to be another mass success.
I'm going to say this. There are several games. If you know a Call of Duty is going to sell, right? You know a Halo is going to sell. You know a Gears of War is going to sell. Of course, you know a God of War is going to sell. But there are certain titles that seem to make the mass gamers just completely lose their shit. Pardon my French. Okay. And there are only a few. Okay. You have the Grand Theft Auto franchise, which is closing in on 100 million copies of Grand Theft Auto 5 sold, which is astounding in any way, shape, or form you can imagine it. CD Projekt Red hit pay dirt with Witcher 3. Okay, Witcher 2 was a big game, and it gained ground, but Witcher 3 was that game that just, it's still selling today. They have the Game of the Year edition. Their DLC is just unbelievably large for the amount of money you're spending. They've really put the work. They really give back to the fans. And the only other one I think that would really, that sells, that has a fanatical fan base, would be like the Fallout series. Those three particular series sells absolutely like bananas. And I think that Cyberpunk 2077 is, like you said, it's positioning itself into be possibly as big, maybe bigger than The Witcher 3. Now, what here's a bit of a shocking information. We talked about this. I'm not sure if it was on the air or off the air, but I never beat Witcher 3. I put about maybe 30 or 40 hours into it. It's big. It's so big that it's daunting at times. And this is where this is going to get, this might be trouble for some gamers. According to one of the directors at CD Projekt Red, Cyberpunk 2077 is 3 times the size of The Witcher 3. So that's saying really something, because The Witcher 3 I thought was so big, it was like overwhelming at times. This is 3 times the size for the same $60. That's why they're one of the most popular companies when it comes to fan service. Now, when you hear that, Noof, does that make you nervous about picking up the game, or does that make you more excited?
For me, I'm gonna have to say it makes me more nervous, okay? But I think for the average gamer and most of their fans, they're probably more excited. Simply because I think if you live and die by CD Projekt Red and you're a huge Witcher fan, I mean, I know there's people out there who finish that game. There's a lot of us out there who can't even, we're not even 20% probably through the game, that sort of thing. So for me, it makes me a little bit nervous, because I've always liked games that are a little more focused. I like games that have a little bit more of a set narrative, or they don't spend as much time with side missions. But that's one of the things that always made The Witcher 3 great, is their side missions alone are as good as some other games' primary missions. You know what I mean? Which is why gamers like it. And for gamers, if you don't buy a lot of games every year and you happen to be a CD Projekt Red fan, this is a bonus for you, because it means you're going to get unlimited play time out of that title, which is amazing. Like I said, you're going to get your money's worth. There's a guarantee pretty much right there, and you can't say that about a lot of games. And I think this one itself, just because of its setting, because it's first person, and just from what I've seen in the trailers, I think I think this one will hold my interest a little bit more than The Witcher, because in The Witcher, there is it's a large scale environment where there are a lot of empty spaces and a lot of riding and things that sort of kind of lose you a little bit, where this one seems like there's going to be so much going on. I don't think you're ever going to stop and be like, man, I feel a little bored at the moment, or I'm lost. So it's kind of half and half for me. I'm definitely a little nervous that it's way bigger because, like I said, I am not even close to being finished The Witcher 3, and I don't want this to be just come another high-profile backlog game that just sits there on my hard drive. I mean, I would like to complete these things, and I would like to, you know, when you ask me an honest opinion of a game, like, you know, would you consider it to be game of the year? And I look at you and I say, well, dude, I haven't even finished it. So like, it's hard to really give an honest answer to that if I haven't gone all the way, you know. And I think that's fair for any game. If you haven't finished any game, you technically don't have, in my opinion, the right to really, you know, condemn it or whatever, you know what I mean, if you haven't gone all the way and saw it through. So I'm a little nervous about it, but I think it's exciting at the same time. We'll see where it goes.
You know what? You brought up something, and I probably should have started with it, because in the description I discussed that we're going to break down the trailer, and I kind of really want to do that. Now, they don't really show actual gameplay, but I think I watched the trailer at least 4 times. It's 1 minute and 40 seconds, okay? But what I think that made me appreciate the trailer, that got me even more hyped for the game, was the living and breathing world that they were showing. There was so much going on in the background. I mean, from a guy, you know, boxing a robot. You know what I'm saying? Like, he looked like he was sparring with a robot. To you know, the cops locking somebody up, or just cars flying in the background, and everyday, you know, pedestrian traffic. Everything looked alive, and I think that if they could somehow replicate that in the gameplay, which I think they're going to do, we're going to be really in for something special here. I mean, what is your take on the trailer, Noof?
I thought the trailer looked amazing. There was, as I said, it's 1 minute and 40, but it's a lot of stuff going on in that trailer, and you get so many great sci-fi vibes. You know, it brings you back to a lot of your favorite sci-fi movies, whether it be Blade Runner or Aeon Flux, or what's a recent one there that came out?
Ghost in the Shell.
Ghost in the Shell. You know, there's a lot of little takeaways from the whole trailer that you kind of remind you. There's one spot where the guy comes up with a gun, he takes bullets in the face, and you can see his skin fly off, reminding me of a scene out of the Terminator.
Yep.
So I think there's a lot of cool stuff. There's a lot of techno noir. There's a lot of bright colors in here. There seems like there's going to be, you know, probably some crazy music. I can imagine how vibrant and crazy the club scenes and stuff alone are going to be in this game. I'm totally excited for that alone. You know, like I said, this really feels like a living, breathing, futuristic utopia, and I can't wait to really dive into it. I think the biggest thing for me beyond the size of the game is I just hope that they don't have it. I hope they've simplified the RPG system in terms of, I mean, it's going to be a first person shooter at heart. I mean, in terms of it's first person, you're going to have some gunfire and stuff like that, but I hope it plays simply, because if there's one other detractor I found with The Witcher 3, Boom, was that outside of the game being long, I didn't like its overly complex control scheme. Now, mind you, it had improved. It improved a lot over The Witcher 2. But I still found I don't like games where they're heavy set on alchemy, and they're heavy set on you know, getting a sword and then putting an enchantment on a sword, and like where there's like basically there's sub menus inside of main menus, and that shit drives me absolutely nuts. It's great for guys that like fucking love RPGs up the yin yang, but I want it to be simplified. I don't want to like I do like leveling up stuff, but I want just a simple control scheme. Like, if you can't get your controls down to using your main face buttons, if you got to be tapping 2 times left and going to a menu and fucking around, like, to me, you're taking people out of the experience.
Yes,
I don't want to be like feel like I'm pausing the game in the middle of the action in order to select the potion, in order to switch to a different sword because the sword is breaking, or, you know, that stuff drives me nuts. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, considered to be one of the best games last year, drove me nuts on that one premise alone, and it's why I didn't even finish that game. I got tired of it because honestly, I can't even swear on this one enough how much I hate it. The whole leveling system with Breath of the Wild, it drove me nuts. But again, I don't want to get off topic, but hopefully they have simplified the control scheme here. They keep it, you know, fast paced, moving along. That's what I want. I don't want it to be over convoluted, because again, it needs to be an action RPG. I don't want this super messy You know, you need to level up your gun 50 times. You got to put little things on your gun. You know what I'm saying, Boom?
Yeah, you know what? I agree with you. I to some extent, because if it becomes too complicated, then it does pull you out of the world. So I think that the one thing that stands out with CD Projekt Red is they're great world builders, but I think they're even more impressive storytellers. And I don't think that you don't want to be pulled out of the world of Cyberpunk. Especially because it's going to be in first person. You're going to feel like you're there, and you don't want to be, you know, constantly in and out of the action. I think upgrading the weapons is great. Adding something to the weapon is great, but I think if the system is too convoluted, it's going to ruin the game flow. But what I wanted to,
let me just say that I hope more developers moving forward, I really hope they're listening. I hope more developers take a little page out of Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice, out of that book. Because honestly, one of the reasons I loved Hellblade more so than a lot of games I've played in the last couple of years, because they didn't bullshit around. They didn't have you sitting in menus looking at numbers and trying to figure out if my sword was good enough, or if I needed a new bow, or I had to go find a loot crate over in the side of some obscure friggin' map in order to get to the next part of the level. I like that. I like that it reminded me of a new age 16-bit game, that there was pulled no strings. It was straightforward. It had a great story. The action did not beat around the bush. It was just, you had your sword, you had your combat system. You never worried about nothing other than just playing the game and focusing on her story. I wish more people would take that page out of Ninja Theory's book and apply that moving forward, because not every game needs to be The Witcher, nor more than The Witcher 3 needs to be some other game. And with these convoluted, like I said, control schemes and crazy ass side missions, like, just look, time for us guys these days, time is of the essence. As we get older, as we have family lives and stuff, you know, 100-hour games don't work well for a lot of us anymore. They just don't. We got so many games coming out, we just don't have time to dedicate to one. I hope more devs are listening. I mean, it's great if you got that one game and that's all you play day in and day out. And I know there's people out there that have beaten Skyrim like more times than I beat myself as a teenager. But I mean, but you know what I'm saying? So anyway, I don't want to get off topic, but I just wish that more people would simplify shit.
Well, you know what? I agree with you. I think that 100-hour games are great because you get your $60 worth. But I think a lot of the circles that we run in, especially being content creators on YouTube, we play a lot of games, which is why a lot of us have huge backlogs. I mean, like, I just literally finished Far Cry 3, you know, the remaster, and I got almost 900 achievement points out of 1,000, which was great because I really went to town on that game. Game was fantastic, but it was, you know, it's sitting there, and as many as new games are coming out, to have a 100-hour game follow that, it's great for the gamer. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those games that just gives back to the gamer and respects your $60. But that time, man, sometimes it's just, you just cannot find the time to get into it. But I understand what you're saying. But you know what? We have our opinions of the trailer. I kind of want to move on to the opinions that I read on the 1-hour hands-off demo that the media was able to get their eyes on, to get their hands on, because they didn't get a chance to actually play it, but they got to watch it for an hour. And okay, here's the thing. I watched numerous videos from many media forces within gaming, and I don't want to name drop any of them because I am anti-media when it comes to gaming. I think that they don't have the gamer's best interest in mind anymore. They have the ideology of how many clicks they can get. So I'm not going to name drop any sites. If you want to, you know, do what I do and just Google, you know, impressions, you can find it the way I did. I refuse to give in to the biased media that unfortunately is the gaming media of 2018. But I am going to say this. I read at least 20 different journalists who had the privilege of seeing this game in action. And one guy said that it changed his life. Now, I think he's being a little melodramatic, but every opinion piece that I read based on what they saw, it completely blew their mind. So hearing that and then seeing the trailer in action had me literally over the moon. When you hear opinions from other journalists, especially positive ones, does that get you more hype for the game, Noof?
Generally speaking, yes. I mean, because the consensus so far from a majority of the sites that have gotten, the backstage access has been extremely good. So that's always great. But you know what? At the same time, I always reserve myself just a little bit, simply because we have seen time and time again how games get a lot of flair, a lot of buzz leading up to E3 and after E3. And then the moment the game comes out or it's in its launch week, it gets torn to shreds. This happens more often than not with Xbox products. I'd hate to say it, but like how many people were praising Sea of Thieves for so long by seeing it at the E3s, and all of a sudden it comes out and everybody's trying to rip it a new one. I mean, I think this game is an entirely different environment of its own. And it does come with a lot of hype, a lot of expectations, and based on CD Projekt Red's background, look, I'm pretty sure they're going to deliver. One of the journalists I was reading her stuff happened to be Alana Pierce, who, God bless Alana, she's moving on from IGN, guys. If you haven't heard, it's sad, because I think she was one of the last people there that actually had some real integrity, that actually had a little bit of at least a backbone, and was afraid to like speak her mind on a lot of different topics without constantly looking like an asshat like the other guys, like Brian Altano, who is clearly a PlayStation moron. Can't stand that dude. And the other guy, Max Schofield, who looks like he doesn't have a serious bone in his body, or maybe they need to be broken. I don't know. But anyway, I just got no time for IGN much anymore. A lot of their people are just so blatantly biased, and the stuff that they pull is crazy. But anyway, Lana is moving on. But yeah, I was reading her stuff, and she says it's extremely impressive and thinks it's going to be the next big thing. And there are a few other journalistic sites too that I can't quote them word for word here now, but there were some people like extremely excited. They're saying this is really like not just a game; it's a new experience, and it is a really big move forward. So pretty excited.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't follow anybody on IGN anymore. In fact, I'm subscribed basically to everyone that's not a small YouTube creator, because I think that the smaller guys deserve the recognition because they put the hard work in. But I am going to say that I did respect her. She did Alana did a tweet a couple of weeks ago about the whole nonsense of the plastic wars when it comes to my plastic box is better than yours, and she made a lot of good sense. It's a shame. I'm happy for her that she's moving on, but at the same time, it just goes to show you, it begs the question, Noof, what the F is going on at IGN where they're losing all of these high-profile female journalists?
Well, they had a lot of that sexual harassment stuff in their company recently, and I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not saying there is. I don't want to start rumors, but you wouldn't be surprised that a beautiful-looking girl like Alana and those people, if they haven't been subjected to it on some level. I mean, some females take it with a grain of salt, and they don't get as worked up over it, while others they do. And it's in no which way or form is it ever right. And that's not what I'm saying, but I'm just saying that sometimes, the tolerance level for people differs. But I mean, I don't want to bring this off a track and to go on this a topic I know nothing about. But I mean, I know that was in their heavily publicized over the last while. They had a bunch of different people that they had to let go due to sexual harassment issues. And I mean, recently we also saw a high profiler, Naomi Kyle. She left to pursue other options, and now she is gone. Before that it was Jessica Chobot. And, I mean, all very talented, beautiful young ladies that have charisma, are big gamers, and they're all moving along. So it begs the question, what is going on over there? Maybe at the end of the day too, they don't like the way that some of their heads are running the show. I mean, because we had some people at IGN before that basically were making fun of Xbox anyway. And it's like, if you're trying to run a credible media site, and then you're basically coming out and crapping all over one of your formats, one of your big supporters, it's not a good look for you when you're supposed to be the most credible journalistic site out there.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And again, it's just, you know what, I got news for you. I want to kind of come back to this at another time. Maybe I'm going to do some investigating on what's going on in IGN. Maybe we can even do a pop-up podcast on that in the future. Obviously, I don't like speculating. I like facts. So I'm definitely going to look into that. And that's something we may return to because it is a serious subject and I think it's worth covering. But today we're here to talk about Cyberpunk, and I want to continue on that trend. Here's the thing. When you say Cyberpunk, you're like, okay, that's going to be a great game. But what is Cyberpunk and where did it come from? And a lot of people do not know this. As a matter of fact, I didn't know this until I started really digging up some stuff. And Cyberpunk is CD Projekt Red got the idea for Cyberpunk 2077 from the pen and paper game very similar to Dungeons and Dragons called Cyberpunk 2020. It is a very popular pen and paper game, and the thing that what you may or may not know about what CD Projekt Red and how they're handling this is they are really, really going close to what exactly is the pen and paper game to what's going to be obviously Cyberpunk 2077. And what I found to be very interesting is that there are multiple classes in the pen and paper game. They have something called the Netrunner, which is basically you're a super hacker of Night City. And obviously they deal mostly in hacking, programming, and cybersecurity. Another one is a techie. And the techies are basically crafters who survive Night City by building, fixing, and modifying technology. They also are very handy in weapon smithing. You have something called a solo, which basically, as the name suggests, they're lone mercenaries that take work as hitman, bodyguards, and other violent work for whoever can pay. And there are 5 other classes that may or may not work their way into the actual 2077. And they're called the Rocker Boys, the Nomads, 2 other types of hackers, and believe it or not, a journalist class, which I thought was very, very funny because we just talked about journalism. But here's the thing. What I found to be exciting, especially because when you buy a game, right? If you buy a game, I buy a game, you want to invest your everything into this game. You want the game to become your game. And how do you do that? Well, you do that with character customization. You make the character, whether it look like yourself in real life, you try to get it as close as possible, or you go balls to the walls crazy and you make your imagination character. And I think right out of the gate, which is very impressive, is that you will be able to choose between a male and a female protagonist. And I think that's a big deal. How do you feel about being able to customize your character from the beginning of a game?
I think it's huge, and it's huge for just about any game, but even more so for a game like Cyberpunk 2077. I mean, if, as you mentioned, Boom, if you're going to spend anywhere from 60 to 100 hours in a game, I think the majority of us would rather feel like we are controlling our own narrative as opposed to playing a scripted one and characters that are already pre-indisposed, much like, its former predecessor in The Witcher 3 or any other type of game for that matter. I mean, it was, some games do it really well. Some games really let you flesh out a character and take them in directions that you really, really want to go. And other ones are a little bit, laxy-daisy, kind of like, again, I'll use a reference to Mass Effect Andromeda, where you could create your own character, but it still didn't really feel like you had a lot of impact on how that narrative was going to go, depending on your decisions. This one has the potential to be totally different, and I think that it will be. Again, just because of these guys' pedigree and their ability to tell a great story. And like I said, a lot of different factions in this game, a lot of different avenues you can pursue if you want to be like a tech kind of head, or you want to infiltrate and different things. So it's going to be interesting to see how each person that plays this game is going to tailor their story, and they're going to challenge different mission structures and stuff like that. I think it's fantastic. Again, there's something really cool about being able to start from the ground up with your character and be able to build them a little bit. So I think it's pretty exciting. Like I said, if you're going to be spending 100 hours into a game, it's better to do it the way you want to do it, as opposed to just kind of everything, letting it run by its own narrative.
Yeah, I think that being able to make a male or a female character opens up a tremendous amount of possibilities. But what I find to be really exciting is how many choices the players are going to have in regards to customizing this character. I mean, based on what I was able to find, they're going to be different shapes, sizes, hair colors, styles, tattoos, makeup. I mean, dude, it's amazing. That excites me. That gets me really amped for this game, because I'm going to make a character with almost definitely with a mohawk for sure. And whether I can get him to look like me is we'll see. But I'm very excited. Now let's talk about the main character that you're going to be able to create. The main character is their name, whether it be male or female, is V, like in Victor. They're gonna be the main protagonist through the entire game, and obviously you're gonna pick your class of what V is. So each character of V is going to be different for everyone, which I think is really awesome, especially if you're going to talk to your friends about this game, because I may pick a mercenary female V. You may take a hacker male V, right? He may be, have a mohawk and a cybernetic eye, and mine's just going to look like a regular human. I think that this really opens up talk within the gaming community of, what character did you make? What class did you take? How did you approach this situation? I think that's incredible. I think this kind of choice, just hearing the little information that we have, should get anyone excited for this game. For you as a player, Noof, does having this amount of choice overwhelm you or excite you?
Oh, it totally excites me, man. Especially in this game, apparently you can have multiple excuse me, you can have multiple sexual options. And and the fact that their name is V, you said V for Victor, and usually Noof would say V for vagina, but there you go.
No, chill.
But it's pretty exciting, man, to have a variety of different options, whether it be through, like I said, your love interests throughout the game, that sort of thing, or the way your interactions may play out with certain characters based on who you pick and how you interact. I think it's really cool. I mean, we're seeing this level of interactivity within games definitely certainly improve over the years. And again, CD Projekt Red, they're masters of this craft. They've always had extensive conversation dialogue wheels throughout their games. This will probably evolve from that. I mean, obviously being built again to run on newer hardware. You got to remember too that The Witcher 3, if you look at it all, their game engine was built, obviously. I mean, the game's been out, what, 2 or 3 years almost already. It's been out. So that means the game was being developed 2 or 3 years, if not before that. So you think of that, the technology they're working with now as well are giving the developers so much more freedom to create more realized environments, and again, to improve that AI interaction throughout the dialogue wheels and the choices you make.
Yeah, I think that's actually really important that you brought up something with the love interest, because there are going to be options for a love interest in the same vein as The Witcher, which I think is amazing, because, like I said, options are good for gamers, and options on that level, I think, really tell a great story, and everyone's story is going to be different. And I think that is absolutely amazing. But here's the other thing. Now, in the demo, okay, we don't know how many NPC characters or buddies, as you will be with you throughout the entire game, and can you change them? But in the demo, there was an NPC character that had your back by the name of Jackie. He was this big, well-voiced Hispanic character. He basically, according to the description, he's a big character that takes no shit and has your back from beginning to end. Now, I think there's a couple of things here. First of all, I love the idea of having a Hispanic main NPC. I think that is fantastic, because again, I love seeing different race, creeds, and colors in games. I think it really says something about where we're going in this world. I think it's important to represent everyone. I am a big fan of that, but I'm curious. And again, this is where we get into speculation part. Are they going to allow you to interchange your buddies, kind of like Mass Effect? You know what I'm saying? You had a team of 3 people, you could pick your teammates. I'm wondering, and because it's CD Projekt Red, I believe if I was a betting kind of a guy, I would bet that you would be able to change is that important to you to be able to kind of like character swap who you find better suit that you have a better connection with, Noof?
Yeah, overall, I'd say yes. To me, I don't think it matters a whole lot. I mean, that's something I think you'd almost have to reserve by, testing the game just a little bit, because sometimes we're often surprised by characters that we didn't think we would like, and then you turn out to like them in games, and it's vice versa. Sometimes you play a game where you're thinking, I'm going to like this character, and then halfway through, you're like, this character is a friggin' idiot, and I wish that he just fall off a cliff somewhere along the way. So it's hard to say. I mean, I think the option is good, as you said. If you could change them out, or if you could make a choice as to who will be your sidekick or your partner, I think again that is all about the immersion. It's about making you feel like your choices actually have impact on the world that's happening around you, and these are huge things as the gaming industry moves forward. If not, I mean, I understand, because obviously too, from a programming perspective, things like that can be very, detrimental to parts of the story, depending on how they've written the game. And again, as a game gets bigger in size as well, it gets more complex, and there's a lot of, pathways and stuff that could change based on who you roll with and how you roll into the game. So I think it's a good thing, but we'll see how it plays out.
Yes. Now, I want to get into exactly what the developer is categorizing this game as, and this is not my opinion or my characterization. This is coming directly from CD Projekt RED. They characterize Cyberpunk 2077 as being a first-person action adventure shooter RPG. Now, when I hear that, that's a lot of genres in one shot. But I've heard from several journalists compare the shooting to something very similar to the newest released Doom, and that has me super amped because I thought the shooting in Doom was fantastic. What about you, Noof? Does hearing that characterization where it's literally every genre rolled up into one? I mean, I think I'm pretty sure. I think people in the chat may agree with me. CD Projekt RED would be the one to pull it off.
Yeah. Well, as it was said in one of the articles, this game is an RPG with shooter mechanics, not a shooter with RPG mechanics. There's a big difference between the two. Yes. Like basically they're trying to tell you that don't worry, this game is not going to be just like a Call of Duty, run down the aisle, shoot, talk to a person, shoot. There's going to be a lot of intricate storytelling weaved in beneath. The shooting takes a bit of a secondary backseat, but you will be doing obviously some gunfights and things in it. It is a little concerning, to the fact that CD Projekt RED doesn't have a massive catalog of games in their background. I mean, other than they do have some good games, but sometimes it's a big gamble when you change a play style, and we've never seen CD Projekt RED do a first-person shooter, and these are things that sometimes take time to get right. I don't want it to be as fast-paced and as twitchy as Doom, because I just feel that the game will take on a bit of an arcadey, over-the-top nature. I want it to feel a little more structured, a little more methodical about how you approach gunfights. You know what I mean? You're just not all balls to the wall going in blazing. I want it to feel cool. I want it to feel futuristic. I want the weapons to be cool, but I don't want it to be just, run, duck, shoot, pop, rinse and repeat kind of formula. Right. Getting a lot of shooters. So it's interesting to see how their take is going to be on it. We know they do third person well. How well can they translate that to first person? That's going to be interesting.
Well, look, some of the other information I was able to uncover is that it's going to have loads of guns and weaponry. That is confirmed. And basically, there's going to be tons of enemy types throughout the world of Cyberpunk for you to tear through. I like the idea of lots of weapons, because a machine gun may be good for me, but may not be good for you. Maybe you like, a sniper rifle. Maybe you like blowing everything up with a grenade launcher. I hope that there's lots of choice when it comes to weapons. But the thing that I found to be very interesting is as you progress with your character V, you're going to be given the ability through leveling up, so to speak, different abilities. Okay. And depending on which class you unlock or you decide to choose, the abilities, of course, are going to be different. And one of the abilities I thought immediately Max Payne was there's a bullet time ability where it slows everything down. And there's also a lightning quick move that flanks you behind enemies, kind of like a warping kind of ability where you're flanking, you're showing up behind enemies, and I guess you're either doing some sort of close combat move or you're just shooting them. I think the idea of giving the player real choice to choose what you want to be this character is important. How about the abilities? Is that something you're looking forward to in this game?
Well, that kind of goes back to what I said earlier about hopefully the control scheme is not too contrived, where you're trying to mess around with too many powers and abilities and different things on the fly. You know, I want it to be fluid. I want you to pick sort of like a loadout that you kind of like and enjoy and that you can use throughout the majority of the game. I don't want the game to sort of restrict you as to how most games do it, how they slowly try to involve you into adopting the game's play style in order to beat a certain level, as opposed to you picking the way you want to do it. Do you know what I mean? Like a lot of games do that where, you know, you play through and then you realize you can't get past this level until you see this guy who gives you this gun, who's going to send you to another guy so you can upgrade the gun and then get the glasses, you know, like that kind of bullshit. I just want to be able to play it and enjoy the story. And, but the abilities are really cool. It's going to set the game apart. And being that it's futuristic, there's a lot of things that they can do that you can't really bring into question because we have no idea what a future could look like. But borrowing some great ideas. I mean, something tells me there's probably going to be some really cool stuff in terms of like visors or, you know, maybe X-ray vision or different things like that. I mean, I don't know, but it definitely seems like it would lend itself well to things like that. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. Like I said, as long as they keep it simple and they give us some really cool, I'd rather have 3 cool powers than 45 ones with 40 of them you never want to use.
Yeah, you know, I agree. I think choice is good, but I think too much choice is overwhelming. And again, we don't want to be bogged down by menus and sub menus and then sub menus to those menus, because then you kind of you're just hitting A at that point.
Well, let's just look at a popular game right now, like Destiny, right? Destiny has, I mean, I don't know how many guns they have in Destiny, right? There's tons and tons and tons of guns. But the thing is, after you play Destiny for 20 hours, no matter, most of the guns that you start picking feel and look the same as the other guns that you had, other than they different color or the scope looks a little different. You know what I mean? Like I want the variety to be less, but I want it to feel more significant as opposed to just, you know what I'm saying, Boom?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Again, you want some substance with your weaponry and your, especially your powers or you know, that make you different in the game. I think that, you know, giving you the choice of 10 different abilities as opposed to 110, it would probably better suit the player. If, again, choice is great. No one wants to take choice away from anybody, but certainly too much choice makes playing the game overwhelming. And then when it comes to going through the menus, like I said earlier, you're just basically pressing A to get through it and go right back to the action. You don't want to be pulled out of the world for, you know, 40 minutes of trying to, you know, get everything right. I agree with you 100%. Now, here's the other thing. In the hands-off demo, they showed some driving mechanics. Now, you can commandeer vehicles. As far as I was able to dig up, there's no access to flying cars, but I don't know if that's going to, you know, again, that's something that may or may not make it into the game, but vehicle combat is definitely in the game. And based on several of the journalists, they seem to be on rails, so to speak, where you're hanging outside of your car while Jackie was driving and you're shooting cars, i.e. very something similar to like you'd find in an Uncharted game when your partner takes control of the car and you're just shooting. Would that be an issue for you as a gamer, or do you want like actual real car combat where you have to control the vehicle and at the same time try and shoot the guys coming after you?
I'd like a mix of both because it depends on how it plays out in relation to the story. Because one thing I've always found, and this has been very difficult, a lot of games haven't perfected this yet. When you're shooting out of a vehicle, it's the way that the control schemes are set up. I've always found them to be quite difficult. One perfect example from one of the games that does it a lot, it's Grand Theft Auto, right? But if you're trying to aim out the window with Grand Theft Auto,
the shooting is horrendous.
You ever try trying to shoot a tire? It's like, man, like you got to be a crack shot or something. Like it's so freaking hard. And there's a lot of other games that do the same thing where you kind of got to hold a bumper button. But when you're trying to steer during a high speed chase and you're basically trying to aim proficiently with it, it's very difficult. So like, I don't know, like some of the scenes would be cool if they were a little bit more story, if there was like dialogue within and they kind of did most of the driving for you and you could concentrate on the shooting, but maybe at another part in the game where it's not as detrimental. Because some games, they have those driving scenes where you kind of got to follow people, you got to tail them and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, or you got to take them out within a certain limit of time. I hate that stuff when you have to rely on precision, because then you obviously... like I said, you're trying to dodge stuff, you're trying to weave in and out of traffic, and then try to be able to be a crack shot enough to take out the guy in the driver's seat of the other car. I don't know, I think there's ways of doing it. I just hope they do it right. And this is one of the tricky aspects that most developers have never really done that well yet. So it'll be interesting to see how they approach it.
Well, yes, definitely. I'm hoping for the on rails part. I mean, obviously, you want to drive where you want to drive, and I think that they've explained that you can just basically drive anywhere. Mm-hmm. What is something that we didn't talk about earlier, and I probably should have brought it up. There's going to be 6 large areas within Night City. Basically, kind of like New York City is broken down by boroughs. You have the Bronx, you have Queens. I think that's the way they're explaining each area. There's going to be a total of 6 of them, and they're saying that they're massive, living and breathing city. Some are going to be high class, some are going to be the poor, somebody's going to be somewhere in the middle. I think that's very interesting, because I think by you traveling to the different boroughs, so to speak, you're going to get a different feel. The game is going to look very different in each one of those. And I think that's going to really bring a lot to the story, because obviously there's a high class, there's a low class, and there's the middle class, just like there is in real life. Yeah. And depending on where you go, seeing the different, seeing the slums, seeing the high class, and seeing like what the everyday middle class lives like, it's going to be really interesting for them to be able to tell a story through just visuals. I think that's going to be really important. The one thing that we did not get yet, and a lot of people are asking this, is that when is the game coming out? We know it's not coming out in 2018. That's basically have been confirmed. But several sources that I was able to kind of dig deep and find have it coming out mid-2019. Now, the game has been in development for over 4 years, and that's great because, CD Projekt RED, they're on their own timetable. They put the game out when the game is done, and that's how I want this game to come out. Is it important to you, Noob, for them to just basically get it right and put it out when it's done?
Well, yeah, especially if you're the type of developer that's taken 5 and 6 years to put out one single game, because one single misstep when you're a developer like that can ruin you. I mean, we saw how The Witcher 3 was a be-all, end-all for this company, because look, let's call a spade a spade. Some people say that CD Projekt Red is one of the best developers this generation. I'm not here to defeat the fact, but let's just face it. The truth is that nobody was bragging and talking about The Witcher 1 or The Witcher 2. It wasn't until The Witcher 3 when all of a sudden these guys became superstars of the game industry. Call a spade, but it's true. Nobody ever, when The Witcher 2 came out on Xbox, nobody was like, oh, you got to play this game. It's like the best game since sliced bread. No, it wasn't until The Witcher 3. So when you're a developer like those guys who don't have a big lot of publisher money to go behind them, they don't have the same marketing dollars. I mean, they're going on fans. They're going on fan reaction. They're going on hype and suspense and these type of things. They have got to make sure it is right. And we've seen how quickly you can fall from grace. Again, I'm going to go back and use the BioWare reference, because BioWare were gods after Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. And look where they went with just one game One game that wasn't even all that bad, but just one game that just missed the mark by a couple of points, and all of a sudden people are like, BioWare's future in jeopardy. Can't they make a good? People are even questioning Anthem now, and nobody knows fucking shit about it just because of Mass Effect Andromeda. Like, it was two different teams. Get that out of your head. BioWare is fine. They've got some of the world's best talent right here on my back doorstep too, by the way, down of Edmonton, Canada. They got one in Montreal, but Edmonton's their big studio out here. But this is what I'm saying. One misstep, it goes both ways. You can have one game that can propel your company, your developer forward to the upper echelon, and one misstep can throw you to the bottom. That's how fickle and crazy this industry is. Because unlike the movie industry, where a movie company can have a hit one day and 3 flops in a row, but they can turn around movies in a 2 to 3 month time span. I mean, can you imagine if every movie took 5 years to make and they bombed? You wouldn't get a whole lot of big blockbuster movies after a while, would you? Because they'd be very restrictive as to what gets released and not, because they'd be a fear. They would fear that this game is going to flop, or the movie would flop. So that's the difference between the movies and the game industry, is that they go on 2 different sets of rules. But yeah, no, it's imperative that they take their time. They've already taken lots of time, but fans deserve nothing less than a appropriate successor to The Witcher, and hopefully that gives this game as well is so far removed from that game that it stands on its own. Because
yes, I agree.
There's nothing worse than trying to live up to your other pedigree, especially when the game genre itself is totally different. Like, you really can't compare Cyberpunk to The Witcher because they're completely different. You can compare Witcher 4 to The Witcher 3 if it ever comes out, but you can't compare totally different genres. That's like trying to compare fucking Call of Duty to Sonic the Hedgehog. Like, you know what I mean? It's just totally different, like, you know. So yeah, it's imperative these guys do it, and do it well, because again, if this is a massive letdown, where does that leave CD Projekt Red? Hey, it might be a buyout by Microsoft, you never know.
You know, it's funny you should say that, because a couple of days ago, right before I went live on Crossfire Friday night, someone had tweeted that they had found a story that Microsoft was going to make an announcement. They were going to buy CD Projekt Red. And I basically tweeted at them, well, I'm going to say this. If by some chance there was any truth to that, and they make an announcement, and maybe Gamescom coming up and says, hey, listen, we're buying CD Projekt Red, I'm gonna tell you right now, next generation is going to look very different than to where it looks right now, because having a company like that, having a Cyberpunk 2077 as an exclusive to your console, would basically make everyone that owns a PlayStation 4 go out and buy an Xbox. So yes, good move, but is it likely? No, it's probably highly unlikely. But again, we were surprised by Ninja Theory, so anything can happen. The one thing I do want to just reiterate that I completely forgot it in my notes was that when you're driving the vehicles, you can drive it in third or first person. Okay, that's big, because you can't play the game in third person, but you can drive the vehicles in third person, which I think is kind of cool. So, all right, well, listen, it's we've been here 1 hour and 3 minutes. I want to thank everybody for coming out and hanging out. We had almost 50 people watching live, which is really big for a pop-up podcast. And of course, I want to thank the chat. Everyone was really nice with one another. I really, really do appreciate that. I don't like bullying. I will call you out. Of course, UK Dazris, who is the moderator of the universe, will boot you on my authority, because we do not like that. We want this to be a non-toxic, friendly environment. As you can tell by the way I conduct myself and the way I act on Twitter and other podcasts, I'm genuinely a very nice guy, and I really enjoy being a good guy. So I want, when people come to my chat, to feel comfortable and safe. And that is why we take no shit when it comes to the chat. No racism, no sexism. You don't, no bashing anyone that's gay. We do not stand for any of that shenanigans. And like I said, I feel very privileged to have UK Dazarus moderating, because he doesn't take any of that shit either. And thanks again for the chat. But of course, I couldn't have a conversation unless I had someone to talk to. And Noof, obviously, dude, this is your 3rd time on my show. I do greatly appreciate you taking your time to come out, giving your insight. First of all, I say this all the time, and I'm going to say it again. I really appreciate the way you speak about gaming. You can tell that you're a passionate gamer, someone that has been gaming a long time, that has a great deal of knowledge, that really doesn't talk out of his ass. I really appreciate that. I'm sure the chat and anyone that's going to listen to this show appreciates that. Where can people find you, dude?
Well, first of all, Boom, thanks for having me here. It's always a pleasure to do this. And right now, time is of the essence for me because I have plenty of it until I get back to work and get cleared to go. But things are going good that way. But again, I appreciate you being here, man. I respect what you do. I love seeing your progress. Congratulations on getting over 1,000 followers on YouTube. It's well-deserved. And again, you get a fair chat because you also, that's how you are perceived as somebody that comes across opinionated but objectional and not just a clear cut, hey, I'm a fanboy, I like this type of plastic, and if you don't agree with me, you can suck a donut. You know, that's not who you are. That's not even who I am. Yes, everybody knows that Noof Nukem has a preference for Xbox. I don't hide it. I love my Xbox. It is my preferred choice. But I play games wherever a good game might be, no matter what platform it's on. I don't just build my fame to my name by just hating and bringing drama. Because some people, that's all they like to do. And that's how they. And look, if that's what works for them, good. But that's not the kind of people we are. We're here just to talk about our love for gaming, and we'll criticize when it's due. We'll applaud and give credit where it is due, and that's how we roll. And if people love that sort of approach from us, fantastic. And if they don't, again, go suck a donut. But but anyway, man, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me on the show. You guys know where to find me. Always in the gutter. Noof Nukem on Xbox. Noof_Nukem on PlayStation Network. And as always, the Game Dosage Podcast Monday nights. And I'm a regular with Salty and Crew on the Saltiest Gaming Podcast on Thursdays. Yes, I'm no longer in Xbox Nation due to scheduling issues. It was just tough for me to make the show, but I do miss those guys, and I owe Mooch and Crap the world. They're still my bros, and I love the content they put out. And like I said, Boom, congratulations on everything, bro. You deserve it. Continued success to you. Thanks for having me. You know that I'm always here and open to come on and give you my 2 cents worth, even if it's just 2 cents. But hey, it's good to be here. Thanks for everybody in the chat. You guys are awesome. You definitely kept it on the level today. Thanks, everybody. And again, look forward to coming back.
Oh, well, we appreciate it. And next time, don't be shy. Bring Cletus, because I know that he doesn't get invites on a lot of shows, but he's welcome anytime.
Well,
there he is.
I'm never too far away there, Boom. As long as anytime I can smell an asshole, I'm usually 3 inches away. So that's how I roll. That's just and Noofy's a big asshole, so you just got to keep that in mind and don't listen to anything fucking shit because he's got vomit coming out of his mouth. But anyway, it's good to be here. I'll come on sometime. I got to do some podcasts. By the way, you can follow Cletus online. I actually got an Xbox Live account, but I haven't been able to use it yet, and it's called Mr. Tube Sock. No, it's not Cletus, it's Mr. Tube Sock. You can always add that account. We'll play a game sometime. It'll be fucking hilarious, but I guarantee you we'll have a good time.
Well, listen, Cletus, thanks again for popping in. You're always raunchy, and we appreciate that. All right, everyone. Listen, thanks again. I hope that you come back on Friday morning. I have an announcement on my guests that are going to be on this week's Breakfast with Boom. Everyone that you know and love will be there. We'll be talking everything gaming. And listen, if you have any ideas for the show and you want to discuss a particular topic, please hit me up on the DM. One of the next previews that we're going to be doing in the upcoming weeks are going to be Gears of War 5, Anthem, and I'm going to see if we can come up with any more serious topics that we may want to discuss on Boom's Pop-Up Podcast. But once again, thank you for coming out today. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your week. It looks like it's going to be a good one.
Oh, keep me in mind for the Gears one, dude.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I love Gears. One. Primal Eve can talk Gears too. She's a great one for that.
She's actually going to be on the show on Friday, as a matter of fact.
Nice. That girl can roll you in Gears, guys. She is good. She can carry your ass like a rucksack, let me tell you.
Well, listen, thanks again, Noof. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Have an awesome day.
Peace, people. Have fun. Game on.
Dude, thanks a lot, brother. Yeah, that was great. Yeah, I like I said, I think I was able